She was working in her garden when she suddenly noticed something floating by in the ditch nearby. She cautiously pulled the object out of the water since she felt it was quite strange looking. Her spouse, however, yelled loudly when he saw what she was holding. Laura, 68, wasn't just someone who would be taken aback by a discovery in the wild. Aside from having a background in microbiology and employment as a wildlife manager with her husband, she assumed that she'd seen every natural occurrence by this point. But this peculiar item sparked doubts in her mind. Her husband, though, appeared to know more about it. When Laura and her husband were gardening, the golden yellow clog floated by. When the news teams arrived, Laura recounted her experience. Something often floats by, but what really caught my attention was the unique color scheme. The woman pulled it out of the water and showed it to her husband. Wide-eyed, my husband gave it a start and immediately screamed loudly. It appeared as though he knew what it was. It was knocked from my hands and landed on the ground with a dull thud. He swiftly donned his rubber gloves and motioned for me to stay away. I was shocked. He claimed that I needed to immediately wash my hands because it was harmful. When it first happened, I had no idea why, but now I completely understand. The 68-year-old woman caught the attention of the reporters who were eagerly waiting for her next comments. Laura quickly went in and spent a good 15 minutes washing her hands. Her spouse and the golden clog were gone by the time she stepped outside. Then she heard Tom screaming coming from the deteriorating old barn on their property. He said he had taken the clog inside to give it a closer look. Laura's spouse knew the answers to Laura's questions regarding the origin of this phenomenon. She remained at the barn's entrance and looked inside. Her spouse was slouched over his workstation and turned away from her. He made low noises that she overheard. This is interesting, I must say. Baby, come take a look. The clog had been put in a container when Laura approached her husband. It was submerged in a small amount of water. Her husband insisted that this was essential because it was not just any object. It was a living aquatic organism known by its Latin name, Pectinatella magnifica. At the moment, she was still perplexed by this new revelation and inquired about it some more. As she inquired, she looked at her husband's hands and forearms. They were full of irritation bumps. Tom explained the situation as he tried to quickly apply ointment. This is a water pocket moss animal, a mollusk that's very rare in these areas. It seemed harmless, but make no mistake. Tom stopped for a moment to scratch and then continued with his explanation. The bryozoans are normally a lot smaller and shouldn't be in these areas at all. They cause a lot of irritation to the touch, as you can see, but that's not the biggest problem with these animals. They rarely come alone and do enormous damage in nature. Tom had just spoken those words when they heard a loud scream outside. It was their neighbor. The 35-year-old woman could see the terrible effects of these animals from her home 50 meters away. Tom remarked, "When these animals come, they don't come alone." He deduced that given the magnitude of the mollusks, a natural disaster was sure to result from this. They quickly went outside to look at the extent of the damage. Tom was spot on with his prediction. There were water pocket moss animals all along the stream. The animals had already migrated to the bank's borders, and the water was a uniform shade of golden yellow. Their garden was partially submerged, and every plant was withering. Since the stream was surrounded by nature, they had to move quickly. These are the things they did. Tom and Laura have spent years working outdoors. They were also aware of the unpredictability of nature. Because of this, they occasionally had to take swift action, which is exactly what they did here. Tom snatched up his mini digger and tossed a big wood into the river for the mollusk to latch on. A wise decision, but it didn't make the issue go away. Fortunately, the pair wasn't done. Tom could already see the mollusks accumulating against the tree stem, while Laura attempted to soothe the neighbor. Thousands of creatures were forced hard against the trunk by the powerful stream. Tom, being very resourceful, got on his excavator, drove the machine forward, and started to dig. He dug a new ditch parallel to the stream using the excavator. He built a water lock by joining the stream with the end of his dug canal. The log served as a dam, directing the animals and water into Tom's ditch. Then an amazing thing happened. While Tom was digging, Laura had gone looking for assistance. Tom was occupied with extending and making his channel deep enough to hold the mollusks. However, they had to go eventually, which is only natural. All mollusks were now inside the new trench, which was more than 40 meters long. The animals were trapped when he blocked the gap to the stream. Now he had to figure out how to remove them from the ditch. Fortunately, Laura was able to assist with this. She was familiar with numerous nature organizations because of her profession as a biologist, and there was one right in the area. After almost 2 hours, 4 trucks had parked on their land, as she had directed them. Tom was given a tour of the trailers by the drivers when they exited. The vehicles cradled 4 enormous water tanks, more than sufficient to move every mollusk. Additionally, they were able to collect all the water pocket moss creatures from the ditch and put them in containers with the help of roughly 100 villagers, including Tom and Laura. Unknown to Tom, something fantastic was in store for him. The water pocket bryozoans were returned to their original location. It's still unclear how they managed to find Tom and Laura, but people regarded Tom and Laura as great heroes. They were made honorary citizens for averting a serious catastrophe for the community. They transformed the old barn on their property into a research facility with the assistance of the local government so that Tom and Laura could better study nature. They were ecstatic about their new position, but more so because they had preserved nature.